Good morning, one and all. How the devil are you all doing this fine day? Who we got in the house? Well, I can tell you Dan Cullen was here yesterday, basically. He was here at 8:42 this morning saying, oh no, it was Andy Dalvell actually. It was here at 8:42 and Dan Cullen followed on at 9:43. Early risers, these guys. But good morning to Andy, good morning to Dan, good morning to Gary Muirhead, who has just joined us. Chris Ford is in the house as well. Our friend Ken Hatcher, all the way from Wales, is here as well. Lots of people tuning in over on Instagram. I'll get to those in just a moment. But good morning to everyone. I do need to press a few buttons here. I'm going to say good morning to Ken Hatcher and to Jim Turner, who has just arrived as well. Good morning, everyone. Just a plain old 701st show today. Feels a bit of an anticlimax after yesterday. I said it wasn't much of a landmark, but, 700, way more interesting than 701. I've been writing an article this morning. This is unscripted. I've only just finished the article. Well, I've largely finished the article. Talking about added value. Obviously, I'm going to Intermat next week, along with a few other people of this parish. And we will be looking at lots and lots of new machines. And I'm excited about it. Don't get me wrong, I'm very excited about it. It's been 6 years since I was last out at Intermat and a good little while since I was last at an exhibition. So looking forward to it. Really looking forward to seeing some old friends and some new friends and catching up with some fantastic new machines. But I was watching a video last night on YouTube where a guy was talking about added value. He was talking about it from a tech perspective, about the fact that, you get in the space that I operate in, there are lots and lots of people making this, this kind of microphone. But where is the added value? If somebody comes along with one that is exactly the same price and exactly the same spec, where is the added value in that? Are they doing anything additional? Can they make the product, and I'm talking specifically here about construction equipment now, can they make it more productive? Can they make it safer? Can they make it cleaner or quieter or just better in some way? Because coming to market, one of the things that I've mentioned in the article is this idea of plugging a gap in your product portfolio. If you're an equipment manufacturer, you've got a 40-ton excavator, you've got a 45-ton, and you introduce a 43-ton. You're not doing that because there's suddenly a specific demand for a 43-ton excavator. You're largely doing it because somebody else, one of your rivals, has got a 43-ton machine, and you've decided to jump on board that bandwagon. So that's, if anyone's got any thoughts on that, when you see a new machine, are you actually looking for, it's got a fancy new wing mirror or something like that, or are you actually looking for genuine added value? I'd love to get your thoughts on that. And one other thing, this came up in conversation last night. I was going to try and turn it into a question of the day, but I decided against it because it's far too complicated. We were talking last night about the Olympics and about animals. I don't even know how the conversation started, but we were talking about which animals, any animal from the animal kingdom that would do well at the Olympics. Now, we decided that things like, cats, so your cheetahs and your panthers and that kind of thing would do very well in the running events or the short distance running events. They're very quick. Obviously, the cheetah being the fastest land animal and stuff. They'd be very good at the high jump and the long jump and all that kind of thing, but they'd be terrible at swimming. They'd be terrible at boxing. So just as a small discussion point for today, if there were an animal decathlon, so a bit of running, bit of jumping, all that kind of thing, which animal do you think would do the best? No prizes for it? Just thought I'd throw that out there. While you're thinking about that, without further ado, let me roll the intro, post the question of the day, and get this show on the road. So somebody has already jumped in here. Yeah, I'm going with Footy. Footy reckons that a kangaroo would do well in the Animal Olympics. I think it probably would as well. Pretty quick, could jump long and high. So yes, good call. Going back to my analogy about machines and added value and stuff. Where is he? Ken Hatcher has rightly said, not necessary right there. Adding different tracks and buckets and stick and boom length can turn a 20-ton machine into a 23-ton machine. And yet, you know, we will unquestionably at either Intermat or at Baum or a Conexpo, we will have somebody that introduces a machine between that one and that one that's already in the range. They'll stick one in the middle, and they will tell you straight face that this is a good thing. This is for the greater good of the customer. When in actual fact, in a lot of cases, it's done purely because one of their rivals has come out with a 43 or a 22.5 ton or whatever it might be. Let's have a look. Jim Turner says manufacturers should make things simpler. Say a manufacturer makes the same machine to 3 specs: basic, old-fashioned setup, low-tech, middle of the road, about 10 years ago to now, and top spec, all the mod cons and teched up to the eyeballs. Yeah, bearing in mind that we, all of us that I can see in the chat right now, I know we've got a lot more from overseas in Instagram, but here on the main chat that I'm looking at here, we are in the UK, and therefore we are in a market that is dominated by rental companies. 85% of all construction equipment that is sold in the UK goes to rental companies. Do rental companies want stuff that requires constant visits by dealers and dealer service personnel with their sonic screwdrivers and their laser things, you know, advanced diagnostics? Or do they want something they can give to Terry in the yard and say, Terry, put that back together again? That's what I'm looking at. We're going back to animal decathlons. Gary. Yes, well, funny enough, this came up in conversation the other day. Monkeys, he says, would do well in the Animal Olympics. I agree. They can make tea and play the piano, well, they can on the telly advert. Yes, do you remember that? Steve, you're forgiven if you don't remember this because you are much younger than some of us. What was it? Cooey, Mr. Shifter, light refreshments. Yeah, you hum it, son, I'll play it. Do you remember that? Anybody? Chris Ford reckons that the elephant would be good for weightlifting. Pound for pound, elephant or gorilla? Gorilla or grizzly bear? I don't know what the hell any of this means, but yeah. Jim Turner. And I do think, actually, we are headed that way, to be perfectly honest. Machines need to be seen more as a platform, not as a preformed machine. Yeah, and I wonder about the equipment manufacturing sector in a number of ways. This is one of them. But the other one that I'm thinking of here, you know, we've become attuned to JCB and Komatsu and Caterpillar and Hitachi and Lugong and all these manufacturers producing tens, if not hundreds of thousands of machines time after time after time. You know, they're constantly producing machines. If the environmentalists and the carbon anoraks get their way and we are all encouraged to reuse our machines, where will that leave the equipment manufacturers of today? Will they go from producing, let's say, 100,000 of a single model to producing 20,000, 50,000? There's one question, but there's another one. One of the things that I always, it's not a criticism because it's what they do, but when you look at those major manufacturers, let me wind back. When you look at some of the most innovative, particularly in demolition, some of the most innovative equipment, you think of Larini and you think of Craic and you think of Company Wrench over in the States. They are taking an existing machine and as a one-off, they are building that machine to the specification of an individual customer. And the reason they're doing that, or one of the reasons they're doing that, is purely because the major OEMs, your JCBs, your Caterpillars, your Komatsus, your Hitachis, are not actually set up to doing one-offs. They can, and on occasions they do, and I know there's a few companies out there, Liebherr, Volvo, have got their own high-reach, Komatsu as well, have got their own high-reach spec specifically for demolition, but it's a high-reach spec that goes to 20 meters or 25 meters. If you're in the market for something of 27.5 meters, chances are you're having to go to a machine modifier. How will the machine manufacturers of the future cope? Peter McKenna says, Devalon do one-off machines. A lot of them do, but you know that they are very much geared to producing lots and lots and lots of the same thing. That's their speciality. So going back to when I can find it, that machines need to be seen more as a platform and not a preformed machine. Is that the way we're headed? Is that the way we're headed? When you look at the way that cars are sold today, you know, when you think, I don't know, it's a standing joke, but, you know, when you buy like a BMW or a Mercedes, you start with the base and then you say, actually, I want the souped up engine. I want the leather interior. I want the GPS and the sat nav. I want the reversing warnings. And you basically build that machine to your own specification. Is that the way we're headed? I know some are already doing it, so you don't need to tell me that, but is that the way we're headed? Is it going to be a case of, you know, I don't want a standard machine? I don't suppose for one moment this is going to apply for mini excavators and skid steers and that kind of thing, although I'll come back to skid steers in a moment. I'll start the show in a moment, I promise, but obviously we've seen one of the things that Bobcat have been working on is this idea of you buy a machine that's very, very heavily digital and you can unlock certain capabilities. So you can unlock additional power or you can unlock attachment capability and that kind of thing. Doesn't exist yet, but they can do it. It could exist if they wanted to. But I don't think that sort of thing is going to apply necessarily to the smaller end of the market. But if you're in the market for a 40, 50, 60-ton excavator and you want that basically to match your application or match your company, take a base machine and build it from that point on. Be interested to see what they do with that. Peter McKenna says, am I going mad? Question of the day is, what meal do you prefer? What the hell is all this animal nonsense? I'm just chewing the fat, nothing more than that. Jim Turner says, the honey badger for the animal decathlon. I think it might win because everything else would be afraid of it. Dan Cullen had a very close call. I saw it on our WhatsApp group. Very close call on site this morning. Not good at all. Remember, Cat were a nightmare with numbers on equipment. 312, 314, 315, 318, 319, 320. And again, you know, I realise this is not actual value as such, but that might mean something to Caterpillar. It might mean something to their dealer personnel. But, you know, if I were to ask most people in this industry, what is the difference between a 314 and a 315? I wonder actually how many people could tell me the difference. Steve Williamson, good morning, Steve, says machine manufacturers give lots of extras of your choice, do they not? You buy a machine with what you want. We had the choice with Volvo. We got asked what we want. Yeah, no, that is all true. That is all true. But is that the way we're headed? Where, as Jim described it, you have a base machine. You know, here is a base, you know, let's do Cat 320, and it comes with nothing. It's basically an undercarriage, slew ring, upper structure, boom, dipper, bucket. Right, okay, so what do you want now? Oh, well, I'd like the GPS. Okay, we'll add that. And we want the reversing camera. Okay, we'll add that. I want it to be a long reach capability. Okay, we'll factor that. That's what I'm looking at. So yeah, that's my thoughts. Jim Turner, in answer to the question, which wasn't really a question, but I just floating that out there, he reckons manufacturers will need to go into the recon market like Cat does with a bigger kit. Then we can have a spec list for the rebuild. If owners want to up their spec, they can have it incorporated into the rebuild. And I do think that is going to be a real thing for the future. Caterpillar, Komatsu, Sleipner, Volvo, they all do these remanufactured or reconditioned, and they do bring them up to the latest spec. I wonder, you know, bearing in mind this desire for decarbonisation and sustainability, where if we will come to a time in 10, 15 years' time when the option will be you can either have a brand new machine, but you'll be penalised or taxed heavily because it is a new machine, or we can take that machine that you've already got that's 5, 6, 8 years old, strip it down to its bare bones, put the latest power unit in it, upgrade all the various bits and pieces and hand it back to you in 3 months' time, almost as a new machine. I think we may be headed that way. Gary Muirhead says Marco Lorini does make some awesome equipment. The guy is an absolute genius. He is. He really is. Steve Williamson. See, this is one of the benefits of being decarbonised. Long tea break, because the first regen is ongoing. And there's Mick Norton joining us as well. And our friend Mick is here as well. So with all that being done, shall we start? I think we probably should. It is Tuesday, the 16th of April. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony. In today's show, Komatsu is about to say goodbye to a trusted and loyal servant, and why that's good news. Sleipner gets its skates on, introducing an electric giant, and construction workers of yesterday versus construction workers of today. Plus, Arden gets attached to Intermat 2024. But before we get to all of that, we do have the small matter of today's mystery machine to solve. Just going to go over to this one. Steve Williamson is saying we get our machines changed every 3 years. I was told it saves them money in the long run. I wonder if that will even be an option at some point in the future. I wonder if it will be mandated that you recondition, remanufacture where possible, and you don't go for that new machine. Or maybe the manufacturers start to build in some kind of buyback scheme whereby they can take your machine, you can get a new one, but they take your old machine, which I know they already do, but then they remanufacture that. It's not sold as a going concern. It's taken back, stripped down, latest spec, and then is pushed out the door to offset their carbon footprint. It's sort of stuff that plays around in my head. David Hearn from LDH Attachments has just joined us over on Instagram. Morning, David. Thank you very much indeed for being here. Now, Mystery Machine. I've already introduced it, but I haven't shown it to you. So this is... Now, before I show you it, there is one amongst you that should get this. Not saying who it is or why they should get it, but one among you should get this. And that is what you've got to look forward to. Gary Muirhead is saying maybe we should be looking at converting diesel equipment we've got instead of scrapping and manufacturing new electric equipment. Well, you've seen what the folks at Moog Construction and Z-Quip are doing. I'm actually meeting them on Friday, not this Friday, but Friday next week over in Paris to talk about something they've got coming up. But yeah, that idea of a conversion brings it up to spec, reduces your carbon footprint. Of all the things that I've seen so far, I do believe that is one of the major steps forward. Do I believe that it is the greatest solution? Not yet. Not yet. But that idea of being able to take an existing machine, I mean, if you think about let's say a 50-ton excavator, a 50-ton excavator, well looked after, is good for what, 10, 12 years, maybe? Depending on application and everything else. So if you've got one of those that's 2 years old and you could hoik off the back end and replace it with electric to meet current standards or future standards, why would you not? Why would you not do that? That's my question. Steve Williamson says, I got the steel wrist fully reconditioned, new one every 6 years instead of a new one every 3. See, that makes perfect sense. I'm sat here actually talking about reconditioning equipment, and I'm thinking predominantly about, the carrier unit, the wheel loader, the dump truck, the dozer, the excavator, but attachments every bit as much. You look at what Rapallo are doing over in Italy, and I know there's a few companies over here that are refurbishing and reconditioning attachments. Why would you not? If it's just a case of changing blades or cutting teeth or whatever it might be, yeah, absolutely. Matthew Sheridan, I don't remember seeing Matthew in the chat before, but good morning, Matthew Sheridan. Where is Matthew from, I wonder? Let me have a very quick look. Where is Matthew Sheridan from? He is we were just talking about these people. He is the National Business Development Manager of Sleipner, Great Britain. Matthew Sheridan, we salute you. Thank you very much indeed for being here. I don't need to say this, but I will. Huge fan of Sleipner. Huge fan of Sleipner. In fact, I'm just having a look. I can't. There's a Sleipner hat here somewhere. maybe between videos I will put it on. But good morning, Matthew. Thank you very much indeed for being here. And I've just realised, I've just put two and two together and realised you and I have been speaking on email. I just hadn't seen you on there before. So good morning. Look forward to speaking to you at some point in the very near future. Jim Turner says, I was having the crack with Marco over on Messenger about what needs to be introduced to our UK construction sector. But the hard thing will be changing the rigid mindset, people. Yeah, that's always going to be an uphill task. I totally agree. Now, there is Matthew Sheridan, as I say, from Liebherr, Great Britain, and he's tuning in from over on LinkedIn. So we've had a few guesses on our mystery machine, and I can tell you, none of them are right, but I will tell you, and we've got Chris Ford is going for a Hitachi FH240. It is not. Gary Muirhead is going for the Hitachi EX210 LC. It is not that either. And it is not a 70-ish tonner Hitachi. In fact, I'll tell you what, Steve Williamson is going for Hyundai 280. I'll tell you now, it is neither a Hitachi nor a Hyundai. I realise the colour scheme. I'm well aware of what I'm doing here. This is not my first rodeo, but that is neither a Hitachi nor is it a Hyundai. Do not be fooled. And just for good measure, it's not a Fiat Hitachi either. Keep the guesses coming in. Now, let me take that away because we do need to... I do need to very quickly remind you of our question of the day. So let me find the right button for that, which is this one. Yep, our question of the day could not be simpler. Which meal do you prefer? Or, to put it another way, which meal could you eat 3 times a day? Breakfast, lunch, or dinner? Now, personally, there are times when I don't eat lunch at all, either because I'm working or I'm driving, don't have time. Forget, that happens quite a lot. There are also times when I don't eat dinner either because of the travel and what have you. Never bothers me too much. Do like a fancy dinner as much as the next guy, but not bothered. But put me in a hotel with a good breakfast buffet, and I am a happy bunny indeed. So what about you? Do you prefer breakfast, lunch, dinner? And if you had to eat one of those meals 3 times in a single day, which one would you go for? Be interested to know. Let's have a look. Sorry, I'm just got to reshuffle my notes because I've lost a thing. Where did it go? Just to be clear, we've actually got a winner already on our mystery machine, and we've only seen one piece of it. And it is not, I'll tell you now, I'll put it up on the screen, it is not a Daewoo Solar 220V. It is not. It is not. It is, when I can find it, the things are moving around. It is a Haller HE 220 LC, and young Steve Williamson. Bearing in mind, you know, the Haller brand has not been around for a while. He has got it, and he got it from one frame, just to prove that he's absolutely right. I'll tell you what, let me put his answer back on the screen. Here it comes. There it is. Well, he does confess the 220 was a pure guess. Well, it was a good guess. It is the HE 220 LC from Haller. So I can't fall back on that at all now. I've now got to actually fill the show with sensible chat. So I'm going to take that away, get rid of that. Well done, Steve. Congratulations on that. Vision. Oh, no, we're back. I had an amazing breakfast on Sunday. My God, I struggled. Yeah, but it's worth it, right? Matthew Sheridan from Liebherr says Premier Inn offer a good cooked breakfast. They do. They do. Not, I know Lenny Henry likes their beds. I'm not a big fan, but I do like their breakfast. And there's our friend Mick, who I was expecting to get the right answer on our mystery machine because he had one. He said, just seen it, preferred the 280. Memories, yes, memories indeed. Isn't it weird? Isn't it weird how we look fondly? There will be a time. I know this is a weird way to go with this conversation. When I got married, you do that thing where you choose your first dance music and you choose the music to go on your music video. Nothing that I chose. I mean, I got married in 1990. But all of the music that I chose for video, first dance, was like 20, 30 years old. It was all back from the 60s and 50s and that kind of thing. And when I look at people now, they're getting married to songs by Atomic Kitten, which I find laughable, but, that's how time works. There will come a time when, how we look back and we say, yes, teary-eyed about the RB22 and the Drot and I don't know, the original Cat D8 or whatever it might be, or the Haller. There will come a time when people will look back, do you remember the JCB 370X? Now, that was a fantastic. There will be people at some point that will look back and say, with tears in their eyes, yes, the 370X. Funny, right? Ken Hatcher says they made Haller in Wales. They did indeed. Steve Williamson says there was a video of a Haller on TikTok yesterday with the back panel like that. It's weird how these things come about. Let's have a look. The back panel put me off. I was waiting to see the tracks. I'm apology. I can only apologise. And Matthew Sheridan. Here's a question. I'm going to throw this one out there. I'm going to throw it at Matthew, and I'm going to throw it to everyone. When you see interviews with like rock musicians, and they say, yes, I heard, I don't know, the White Album by the Beatles, and that was the moment that I decided, yes, music is the thing for me. What was that machine for you? We've just seen Matthew Sheridan. I don't know how old he was when he first touched a JCB 3C. I'm sure he looks way younger than I am. But that machine, he touched that machine 10, 15, maybe 20 years ago, and that led him down the path to where he is today as a major business development person within Liebherr. What about you? What was the machine? And I know some of you are second and possibly even third generation construction equipment people, but was there a machine where you saw it, you got it behind the levers, and you thought, this is it. This is my Sex Pistols, Rolling Stones, Beatles moment. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life. Be interested to see. Bitelli BB30 paver in Manchester City Centre. Bitelli, I haven't seen that name for a while. I'm sure I guess they're still around. I haven't seen that name for quite some time. Anybody, if you've got a story about how you encountered a machine and that was what turned you on, then there you are. Steve Williamson, straight away. My granddad's Liebherr 210. So we've come full circle. I was led to that question by somebody from Liebherr, and there you are. Steve Williamson's granddad had a Liebherr 210, and Steve Williamson is now demonstrating equipment around the world, possibly because of that encounter. Ain't that great, eh? RB22, think I got the cough to go with it. Yeah, indeed. Yes, Matthew Sheridan says, no, Cat acquired them. Yeah, Cat did go through a few acquisitions over in the sort of paving area, didn't they? I do remember that. And he says, nice. So Footy is saying, since we have, and I realise that Matthew Sheridan is not involved in the actual manufacture. He is very much front and centre and customer facing. But we're going to throw this out there. But Matthew, this is something we've been talking about quite a bit on the show recently, about the ability, basically ingress and egress to a machine cab. To give you a bit of background, we've got a guy called Peter McKenna in the chat who is blessed with but one leg. We've also got Graham Williams, who is in his 60s, size 17 feet. Not that that's important, but size 17 feet and in his 60s. And, we've got other people that have all mentioned the ability or the inability to get in and out of machines easily, about the fact that the step that's in, within the undercarriage, above the bottom track and below the top track is difficult. And Graham, our friend Footy, has been out and he's bought himself a ladder that is supposed to go on a child's trampoline to basically get himself in and out of his machine. I'm not expecting, Matthew, for you to go back to the higher-ups at Liebherr and have all your machines redesigned. But does this come up in conversation? I'd just be interested to know, is one should... listen, I'm an awkward bugger and a clumsy sod as well, so I'm very aware of this. Once I'm actually up on the level of the cab, getting in and out, very easy. All the doors on excavators now are very wide opening. They all clip back. There's lots of space so you can get your rear end in and stuff like that. But getting up there and getting back down again, and the one that really drives me mad is that idea of hanging on with the two grab handles and you've got one foot on the track and your other foot is searching for a step that you can't see. Is that something that comes up in conversation? Matthew Sheridan says, Volvo did a cab that can be lowered to the ground some years ago. We can offer this also if needed. There you are. There's one answer. And I know we've seen that. We've also seen Case have done that for disabled drivers on one of their backhoe loaders. And obviously Marco Lorini over in Italy has done that as a retrofit as well. So those things are available. But I would imagine that all comes at an enormous additional cost, and you kind of need to spec that with the machine. So if you have an operator that is injured or disabled in some way, possibly at work, is there a retrofit option? Be interested to know. Jim Turner says the first machine. Just to be clear, we've got a show to do. We're half an hour in, and I haven't even started yet. The first machine I can remember being in the seat of was a DMAG 241. Started pulling the levers, although I've been told not to. We have an MF 3185 when I was a kid, and an old Kubota 3-ton mini digger with no cab and knuckle boom. It was a great tool. Bags of power. Yeah, the old Kubotas certainly did have bags of power, but a DMAG. Yeah, if you're going to start on anything, DMAG, absolutely. Let's have a look. Not sure Mick Norton may know. We had an old drop with cables pulling the blade up. The life of me can't think of the model. This was in the 60s. Mick Norton, if you're out there, he is. There is a massive difference in the 370X and my teary-eyed 22 RB. My RB was 100% British manufactured with quality British components, competent fitter dealer support, legible handbook for the operator. The 370X is well made, but from a plethora of international sources, and will never compete with the 22 RB's longevity proven over decades. It's hard to argue with that, as much as I'm impressed by the 370X. And there you are, Matthew Sheridan has direct access with the Colmar factory and discuss R&D for our market. Accessibility is always on the agenda. There you are. I'm not going to call my new best friend over at Liebherr a horse, but straight from the horse's mouth. There you are. Accessibility is always on the agenda. So, to those of you that are struggling to get in and out of cabs and that kind of thing, so Footy and anybody else, Matthew Sheridan, meet the audience, meet Matthew Sheridan. He's over on LinkedIn, find him, tell him your problems. He may well take it back up the line. He may, and that would be a good thing. So thank you very much indeed for that, Matthew, and appreciate your input. 35 minutes in, we'll start the show. If these shows get any longer, I will miss Intermat. So I don't even know what to do about it, to be honest. Those of you that were here yesterday know that I was scheduled to speak to the fine folks at Komatsu yesterday afternoon. And oh boy, do they have some exciting stuff planned for Intermat. Lots and lots of big machines, small machines, diesel machines, electrical machines, and machines that nobody has yet seen. In addition to all that, Intermat will mark the beginning of a longish goodbye to one of the company's much loved off-highway trucks. On the downside, the industry will soon lose the HD 605-8. On the upside, however, the industry will soon be getting the HD 605-10. I can't show that to you yet because it doesn't actually exist. The machine they'll have on display over in Intermat is still considered a prototype of a kind. So before it goes away, I thought I'd remind you what a fine piece of engineering the Komatsu HD 605-8 really is. Steve Williamson there. It's great video. Yeah, could have done with a bit less twitchy on the drone, I think. Needs some drone flying practice, I think. Yeah, couldn't agree more. Jim Turner enjoying the tune. Now, Steve Williamson has asked, what is it that Matthew does at Sleipner? I can tell you, I'm looking at his LinkedIn at the moment. He is National Business Development Manager based out of Warrington, I think, by the looks of it. I don't know whether he is in Warrington. I mean, certainly the fine folks at Sleipner, Great Britain aren't in Warrington. The name of the place, where are they? I've been there so many times I can't actually remember the name of the town. But yes, Matthew Sheridan is the National Business Development Manager. If you'd like to make touch or make contact, that's the word I was looking for, make contact with him, you can do so over on LinkedIn. Chris Ford, going back on the conversation we were having a little bit ago. Then again, Mick, would you rather spend 10 hours a day on an RB22 or a JCB 370X? And therein lies the conundrum. Personally, 370X. I don't have the forearms for a 22 RB. Jim Turner is saying to Matthew Sheridan, the platform-based machine is the future. Every machine has the power to be a multi-tool. They just need designing like that. And in absolute truth, and in fairness to Sleipner, they do that. They do that, and obviously with the capabilities they have, particularly at the top end, when they are dealing with things like mining machines. You know, mining machines are very much built to order. So yes, they certainly have the capability. So yes, there you are. Footy, I will send you Matthew's details on LinkedIn. Not a problem at all. Steve Williamson, again, can't wait to see the new stuff in Intermat. I found the big shows, you really get to see what's coming. Yeah, and we've got a double dose as well. Having been to the Intermat press days back in January, I think it was, either end of January or beginning of February, speaking to the likes of, and most specifically, Volvo and Sleipner, they will have fantastic displays, precisely as you'd expect from companies of that stature and that quality. But both of them mention the fact that we're going to show you some stuff, but wait till Bauma rolls around. So where are we? We are now in April. Obviously, this time next year, roughly, it's Bauma time. So we're going to have a big bash of new equipment in a week's time, and then a year later we'll be doing it all again. Mick Sayre, got to leave soon. Old Peter Hill being buried today. To those of you who may have known him, good run to 93 and a top man in every way. I never know what to say to people that are going to funerals, but give them a good send-off for us, would you, Mick? The Komatsu machines at Balmer were huge, but the loading shovel they had was just impressive and bloody enormous. Yeah, and they've got, I'll just have a very quick look. I mean, one of the machines they've got on the standard Intermat is the PC 950, which is a big old lump of excavator. Really is. Andy Darvell says, I'm a first-generation operator. My dad and granddad were both builders, ran their own company. First machine I drove was a JCB 3C. JCB 3C, the starting point of the industry. Not sure if it was a 3CX as I was 4, and it was 1988. 4 in 1988. Good Lord. I was on the verge of getting married then. I was sat on Brian Pigeon's lap, pulling levers with him. We pulled down the old shack where my dad built our then house. Started Demolition at the age of 4. Loved it ever since, and back in the fold very, very soon. Could we feature a 22RB with dragline video clip with Tina Turner singing Simply the Best? We could. I'll be penalised for copyright, but yeah, what the hell? What the hell? If I can find a decent video of a 22RB dragline, I will do that. Cannot bloody wait for Balmer. Probably the best show I've ever been to. Yeah, it is. You know, it's a strange thing. I mean, I love Con Expo because it's Las Vegas. I really, really, really love Somota because it's Italy. I love Hillhead because it's local and it's manageable and it's fun and it's all the people that I know. But Balmer, it is the World Cup, is it not? There we are. Let's have a look. Stay safe, fellas. Catch you all soon. Yeah, have a good one, Mick, and good luck with the funeral today. Steve says, I'll be round to Komatsu with a card. I did mention you very briefly yesterday, Steve, when I was speaking to the guys there. One of the things they are going to be showing off, and they're just going to say goodbye to Matthew. I have to go speak soon. No problem at all, Matthew. Thank you very much indeed for your time and for your input as well. Much appreciated. Yes, go around to Komatsu with a card. One of the things they're going to have on display is a brand new UK-built excavator cab. Now, obviously, you know, I can get in a cab. I do from time to time, but I'm not the best person to judge a cab. So, Steve, I'm planning, if all goes according to plan, I'm planning to grab you for half an hour between your Kinzoffer demos, take you around to Komatsu, sit you in the cab, literally first impressions. We'll mic you up before we even show it to you. Mic you up and then say, okay, get in this cab. What do you think? Is everything where you need it to be? Is this... Ergonomic sounds such a noncy word, but is it ergonomic? Is everything within reach? Is everything sensibly laid out, intuitive, that kind of thing? We'll do that one together, Steve, and we'll do the introduction with Komatsu at the moment. At the same time, rather, Mick says, Mick Norton would love to get a little behind the levers again, but without the original brake system. Quite possibly. I'm going to keep digging on the RB22. See them at the end of the show, blasting their horns and moving all the machines. Myself and Ed, bloody welled up. Just a strange feeling at the end of the show. It is. Yeah, it is. And I, bearing in mind, I have told this story before, and I promise I will crack on with the show in a second. I left the Balmer before last, and I'd probably done it a bit too soon, if I'm being completely honest. I'd had a burst appendix, and I'd had sepsis twice. I'd had a whack in the head with a low flying brick, and I wasn't well enough to be there. But I did the show. I did all the days of the Balmer show. When would that have been? I don't know, 2018, something like that. And Fred took a photograph of me walking out of the show and literally sort of waving goodbye to the show, because I'd said to him like 30 seconds before, that's it, that's probably my last. Because it literally destroyed me. I mean, I could barely walk by the time I got back to the plane. But it was because I'd been ill, and not because I was, I mean, I'm knocking on a bit, but it wasn't an age thing. It was purely because I was just not well enough. And Balmer, you kind of need to be in training for it if you're going to see it with any degree of depth. So yes, Balmer, it does leave you with that feeling, you know, when a show's over, particularly if you've been an active part of it, like yourself and Ed were. Yeah, I would imagine that would be quite the pull. Yes, so we will be bringing you more about Komatsu next week, hopefully direct and live from Paris as well. Everyone I tell about Balmer says you need at least 5 days to see everything. Yeah, even then. And bearing in mind what I do for a living, you know, my job basically is to try and see as much of everything as I possibly can. And every single time I do it, you know, and you get back, I'll sit next to, I don't know, Peter Haddock on the plane on the way home, and he says, "Did you see the so-and-so?" And you think, shit, missed that one. And then I say, "Oh, but I really like that." Shit, I didn't see that one. That's the way Balmer works. 5 days isn't enough. It really isn't. But that's all you've got, I guess. So let's crack on, because, you know, this show could go on all day at this rate.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
You have to move your excavator over a relatively long distance. So what do? Well, you could call for a low loader and let the truck take the strain, or you could risk excessive wear and tear on your machine's undercarriage. Alternatively, you could just do this. And that is how you get your skates on. It's got to be 20 years since I first saw that live and in person. Still think it's an engineering marvel to this very day. There's Steve saying, "Love a deer." Yeah, indeed. A deer, a doe. What is it? Doe, a deer, a female deer, or something. Here's an interesting one. Back in the day, whenever we used to talk about equipment, the number of times, you know, major manufacturers will be telling you how much better their machine was than their nearest competitor. And, you know, I'm sure they meant it, and they were being completely honest about that. But when you scratch the surface, you found that they were all running Cummins engines or Perkins engines. They were all running ZF transmissions or whatever it might be. So when you actually got under the surface of a machine, by and large, a lot of them, you know, Kawasaki motors and that kind of thing. So a lot of them had a lot of commonality. Mick Norton bringing that fully up to speed here. With so many manufacturers hamstrung with having to accept Chinese electronic component parts, how can they possibly guarantee any machine longevity in the current political climate? Current political climate is one thing, but also going back to the 370X versus the RB22. The 370X wins by every single metric, bar one, sentimentality. I think we can all agree that. But an RB22 mechanic with a sledgehammer and a screwdriver could fix 99% of what went wrong on it. 370X, not quite the same thing. And electronics, I rely upon them to do what I do for a living. I love electronics. I love gadgetry. I love technology. But technology, electronics in a construction demolition environment doesn't feel like a necessarily good mix. What does that do for longevity? If you were running a purely mechanical machine, yes, there were things that could go wrong, but they were fixable. If you're running a partially or fully electronic machine, there's a lot could go wrong. And Bob in your depot or in your warehouse is probably not going to be able to fix it. 22RB probably more mechanically reliable than 370X, says Mick Norton. JCB, are you listening? Let's put that to the test. And he also says Sleipner, innovation is the biz. It's a perfectly when you look at it, what were we talking about? I know what it was. When Ed Butler was here yesterday, we were talking about the dual steer, the new 4CX from JCB. So you can drive drive from the backhoe end. I'm looking at it thinking, why did we not think of that before? The Sleipner system, why not? Or why not? You know, I know we've been talking about sort of demountable steps that come down to allow people to get in and out of the machines. What about wheels? What about a set of detachable wheels that you could just fold down, lift the machine up, and just drive off yourself? Yeah. See, when all these things become real, I'll be minted and I won't have to do this show anymore. So you better hope and pray that that doesn't happen. Let's have some of this. We've got a deliberately funny video coming up for you after this one that I'm about to play. And bearing in mind we've been talking about the old versus the new, I think you'll like this, but we'll come to that in just a second. But yesterday we featured a machine from the fine folks at Tobrocco Giant. We're about to do so again, only this time the machine in question is all electric. Steve Williamson reckons that's hot. I'm inclined to agree. Well, maybe not for this country because we're a bit weird about all things compact wheel loaders, but yeah, I think that's a perfectly good machine. Smart looking tool. I'm also going to say good morning to David Phillips, who may or may not be watching at the moment over at Off-Highway Research. He is the chairman thereof. And also Alice Stratton, project management at JCB, who is watching over on LinkedIn. Good morning to you as well. Thank you very much indeed for being here. Now, I did promise you an amusing video, and I will be doing that immediately after this.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
Just going to put this one up very, very quickly. Steve says, Balmer love their little loaders. Be interesting if it will be a lot of electric ones next year. Is going to be a lot of electric ones next year. Is going to be an awful lot of electric at Intermat as well. Having spoken, I mean, there are two core themes to Intermat next week: decarbonisation and digitisation. So expect lots of tech, lots of electric. I'm not expecting to see much development in the way of hydrogen, although I could well be surprised. But I am expecting to see a lot of electric. Chris Ford said, electronics are the death of modern machines. They would have more years service if they weren't all complicated electrics. Often wonder what the actual carbon footprint of a 50-year-old machine would be compared with a modern machine. It's a good question. Garvin, Mostly Diggers has just joined us as well. JCB would have their work cut out to produce a 2024 equivalent of my beloved 22RB dragline application. I don't know if she's still watching, but I'm going to say this particularly to Alice Stratton. Alice Stratton, Mick Norton has just laid down the challenge for JCB to produce a 2024 equivalent of his beloved 22RB. Now, be off with you. Go and make that happen. You don't have to, I'm just saying that. Now, let me be clear. Let me be very, very clear before I share it with you. The video I'm about to play you is a joke. Let me take that off the screen because I want you to see it in all its glory. It is a joke. It's been produced to be funny, and it is not, I repeat, not necessarily a reflection of the industry of today. That being said, humour always works best when it's close to the truth.
Would you not just take a break?
No, I don't want a break. Well, I stack them blocks there.
Right, sure, go on.
Yeah. What time is lunch?
It's only here 20 minutes.
Okay.
Here, will you get off that phone and do a bit of work?
Sorry, where's the first aid kit? I cut my finger. My arms are killing me and my hands are killing me, Mum.
Right, come on, back to work.
Right, Ma, I better go. He's calling me. Ma, please come and collect me. Bye.
Now, I've never heard of any demolition or construction workers actually calling their mums to rescue them, but that slow walk and their mobile phone addiction, I've seen that. I've seen that in person. Did you spot any of the traits on that video in your colleagues? Bet you have. Let's have a look. Andy Darvell enjoyed that enormously. Yeah. And I can say this because I'll tell you two things. Our friend Garvin said, "Oh, where can we find more of these documentaries?" Yes, it was very close to the truth, wasn't it? My eldest son has come full circle. He is now a certifiable workaholic. I think he was out of here at 5 o'clock this morning. He won't be back much before about 6. He is, an absolute workaholic. But back in the day, he was that walk that you've just seen. That was his speciality. And my wife asked him once to pick up some dirty washing from the floor of his bedroom, and rather than bend over and pick the stuff up, he kicked one sock towards another sock. He kicked a pair of underpants towards the socks, shuffled a little bit, and then kicked them all down the stairs rather than bend over. As I say, he's come out the other end, but man alive, yeah, the youth of today. Jim Turner says, I have a 50-plus year old 3C. It's rough and obviously had a very hard life, and it will still do a day's work. If it had been looked after, it would be even better. Yeah, listen. The one that amazes me, and I realise you have to take some of these things with a pinch of salt, but where you find people that have bought a property, often in America, and they're going through a shed or an old field, and they find an old Caterpillar machine, and after a change of spark plugs and getting rid of some monkey old oil and running the filters and what have you, they get the machine to start. I believe a lot of that. Andy Darvell says, very close to the truth of you today. Get plenty of young labourers on site like this. Couldn't pull the skin off a rice pudding. And why would you? That's the best bit, I believe. Now, let me crack on because we've got one final film to show you today, which will take us beyond the hour. Shows are getting longer by the day. There are just 3 more UK-based breakfast shows left until I pack up the contents of the studio, pack it all into a suitcase, and then rebuild it in Paris. Hopefully with all the plugs in the right holes. We shall see. So with the show now almost upon us, it's time to take another look at what one of the exhibitors will have in store. And this, when I've got it off my hard drive, will be attachment manufacturer, Arden. Let me find that for you. It's here somewhere.
Puis from Arden Equipment. The previous edition was cancelled because of COVID, and this year again Intermat is back, and we're also back as an exhibitor, And we're very happy that it's happening at that time of the year because we have quite a few exciting products that we want to introduce to the market. And yeah, for us, it's going to be a big deal, yes. On top of the new products that we're introducing at Intermat, we will show some of the products we had displayed at Bauma, including our new CD80, which is the biggest demolition attachments that we've produced so far. We've got a new range of sorting grabs that we have designed specifically for the mini excavator range, from 800 kilo to 6 tons. So we will exhibit at Intermat the 4 models that we are launching. And we're really proud of this new range because we've really looked at it in a very cost-effective way in order to be very aggressive on price, but also very innovative in the way that the grab is designed. The mini excavator sales are the biggest sales, on the whole excavator range, and it's an area where we had some products to offer, but they were a premium product because they were designed for a recycling and demolition application. Now this time, we've really designed a range that is accessible to everybody, from the landscapers, to the companies who are using grabs maybe at not such a high intensity. Yes, welcoming people back, greeting our customers on our booth, because it's a great event, and we celebrate as well the fact that our customers are still faithful to the Arden equipment brand, and we're really looking forward to welcoming them on our booth with some good food and some good drinks as well.
He had me at good drinks, to be perfectly honest with you. Let me get that off the screen. Yeah, that's Arden equipment. And Daniel Dupuy, looking forward to catching up with Daniel. We've worked with them several times in the past. Great guy, and they make some really good products as well. So I hope to catch up with them at some point next week. I'm going to show you this one from Andy Darvell, and then I've got 2 more bits that I want to share with you, and then I'll go over into the chat properly. Andy Darvell says, I was taught when I was 18, stripping buildings out with a mattock. If the door frame's hard, be hard with it. Fittest I've ever been, spending days on a mattock. Loved it. Yeah, bit of manual labour, can't say wrong. Not much wrong with that. And Chris Ford says, does Mick remember JCB building a replica World War I tank? All good apart from the drive. I have no recollection of that whatsoever. I wonder if that's in the JCB archives. I'll ask the question. And I'm going to throw this one up, and then we're going to go over to the chat to possibly discuss it more, or I may even save it for another day. But this from Mick Norton says, dare I say the Cat D8H was probably the finest earth mover ever made. Oh, that's a tough one. It's one of those things, what is the greatest band? Who was the greatest footballer? What is the greatest song? It's kind of a horses for courses. It's kind of a personal preference. I mean, the D8H would be right up there. To my mind, the D11 is an icon. Because of its sheer scale and everything else. But the D8H, yeah, good call. I wonder if there's an excavator that would compare to that. I wonder if anybody's got any thoughts on that. And Jim Turner is saying the World War I tank was part of a Guy Martin program. That's why I've not seen it. Never watched a Guy Martin program in my life. Never seen an episode of Gold Rush either in my life. Never watched Game of Thrones. Never seen a Lord of the Rings movie. Just me. Yeah, JCB did build a Mark IV tank with Guy Martin. There you are. The audience is an education every single day. We're an hour and 4 minutes in, so it's time to call it a day, sort of. I'm going to roll the outro in just a moment. Before rolling, roll the outro. That's what I'll do first. I'll also leap gazelle-like over into the chat, because that's what follows. And we'll see what you've all been saying today. If you can't stick around for that, then please stay safe, look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. And I will be back with the Craic immediately after this. Change it up a bit with the music today. Just take that down a touch. Yeah, pretty good. Pretty good. There's somebody watching over on Instagram called Duncan1497. here almost every day. Don't know who the hell he is, but Duncan, good morning to you. I know a Duncan. Not sure he'd be watching, but good morning to you. Sorry, Mark 4, not a Mark 6. I'm struggling with my Roman numerals there, but I think that's the way around it goes. Right, let's go back to the beginning of the chat. I won't dwell on the animal decathlon or the animal Olympics, which is something that came into my head. Just threw it out there and won't dwell on it. Let's have a look. Who do we have here? We've got Andy Darville, Dan Cullen, Gary Muirhead as well. Chris Ford is in the house, as they say. Ken Hatcher was or is here. Jim Turner as well. Footy was here, but I know he's gone. There was our question of the day. Which do you prefer? Breakfast, lunch, or dinner? As I say, like me a fancy dinner. Don't mind a spot of lunch. But I think what's leading me down this path on my preference for breakfast is the fact that I could eat a full English in the morning, in the afternoon, or in the evening, and be very happy about it. I would have no problem with a bit of egg, bacon, beans, bubble, black pudding for dinner. Ruth, if you're listening, I know she's not here, but she may be watching remotely. Yeah, I would have no... There was a TV show called Scrubs about American doctors. I don't know if anyone's ever seen it, but there was a member of the cast in that who had a hankering for breakfast at dinner time, and he referred to it as Brinner. Yes, I'd like a spot of Brinner, if you don't mind. Animal Olympics. Apparently kangaroo would do very well, and a wallaby, quite possibly. Peter McKenna is here as well. Peter McKenna says dinner or tea. Best meal of the day. Yeah, is that a north-south divide thing? And where does supper come in? Down where I am, breakfast, lunch, dinner. Not tea. Afternoon tea is a thing, but that's between lunch and dinner. Afternoon tea. I don't do tea. And where does supper come in? Is supper supplemental? Do you do breakfast, lunch, dinner, supper? I'm asking. I'm not criticising. I'm asking because I don't actually know the answer to that. Let me have a bit of this on there. Question of the day. Ken Hatcher is going for lunch. I do love a feast at lunchtime, says Steve Williamson. Yeah, but by that, I mean, you'll have worked up a sweat, wouldn't you? I mean, maybe that's my issue. What I do is not exactly, me doing that is about as physical as I get. So I've not really exerted much in the way of calories. So lunch, take it or leave it. If I do leave it, dinner obviously is very welcome when it arrives, but not all that bothered. Jim Turner says, I think they should make things simpler, talking about equipment manufacturers. So a manufacturer makes the same machine to 3 specs, basic old-fashioned spec, middle of the road, so about 10 years ago to now, and top spec with all mod cons and teched up to the eyeballs. In truth, 2 of those specs actually exist in a lot of the manufacturers anyway. Caterpillar, as an example, traditionally made the high spec all mod cons version that Jim's describing there for markets like the UK, Europe by and large, or most of Europe, Western Europe, should I say, America, Australia, New Zealand, and places like that. But they had another spec which back in the day would have qualified for Eastern Europe, so places like Russia and Poland, less so these days, obviously, but it was also for the African markets as well, African and Middle Eastern markets, where they weren't so concerned about emissions and not so concerned about comfort and stuff. So, and some of it is entirely explicable. If you're operating a dozer in the UK, chances are 8 months of the year you will be exposed to potential chucking it down with rain. If you're working in the depths of Africa, chances are you won't. So they had dozers without cabs for very good reason. So those, the dual spec within a single manufacturer do exist. Gary Muirhead, monkeys can play piano and make tea. If that were the case, I'm not so much the piano, although we do have one because Fred can play piano. If I could have a monkey that made the tea, yeah, might just swap Ruth out for a gibbon or something. Chris Full recommending the elephant for weightlifting. Indeed, indeed. Jim Turner has sent Matthew Sheridan away at Sleipner with a thought. Machines need to be seen more as a platform and not as a preformed machine. As I say, car manufacturers are doing it, particularly the BMWs of this world. You can choose the specific engine, specific gearbox, interior, all the tech that goes with it. You can do all of that. Equipment manufacturers, probably coming. Steve Williams says, plenty of monkeys here driving machines. Plenty of monkeys here operating a microphone as well, it has to be said. If nobody has ever seen the video, it will mean very little. There is an animal called a honey badger. And I can only describe it as an angry Glaswegian in animal form. It's not particularly big. Its name suggests that it is a badger. I don't know if it is actually a badger, but it's called the honey badger. Makes it sound sweet and cute. Honey badger will pick a fight with a lion. I don't mean it will defend itself because a lion has come by. It will go and look for a lion to have a scrap with. They are mental. They really are. Remember, Cat were a nightmare with numbers on equipment. 312, 314, 315, 318, 319, 320, 325 as well. Yeah. And I realise this is not an actual value thing. But surely, and listen, I mean, Caterpillar is the global leader in construction equipment for a very good reason. They do 99.999% of things right. But there would have been a meeting where somebody said, we used to have like the 215 and the 200 and stuff like that. We're going to change it. We're going to go to the 300 series. But when you've got that many machines, 312, 315, 312, 314, 315, 318, 319, 319, 320, 325, what is that doing for the customer? Is any customer out there saying, well, thank the Lord they've clarified that? Or are they looking at it going, so what is the difference between a 312 and a 314? Is that not a 315? What about a 318? And a 318 and a 319? What is it? A different wing mirror? A new ashtray? To my mind, that's not value to the customer. It might mean an awful lot to Caterpillar. It might mean an awful lot to their dealer personnel. But does it help the customer? Which ultimately is what you're there to do. Steve Williamson says machine manufacturers give lots of extras of your choice. Do they not? Well, they do. You buy a machine with what you want. We had that choice with Volvo. We got asked what we wanted. Yes, they do. They do. But I think that the trick here is, particularly when you look at the way that modern machines are spec'd. I mean, Steve Williamson is employed, so he has input into the machine that he drives, but ultimately that purchase decision rests with somebody else. They will take into consideration his recommendations and his thoughts and everything else, but ultimately that decision is made elsewhere. If you're an owner-operator, for example, and you're going to have just one machine, and that machine is going to be, your bread and butter, it's going to be your office, it's going to be pretty much where you spend most of your life, chances are you would spec that differently. Some of it I know is a bit for show and for differentiation, so fancy lighting and sexy seating and that kind of thing. But that machine will be literally down to the nth degree designed to you. And that all costs extra. And I wonder if we're headed towards, you go to a website and you say, okay, well, I want the Cat 320 and I want that. I don't want that. I definitely don't want that, but I'll have one of those. Yes. Develon do one-off machines. Yeah, lots of companies do. Lots of companies do. And I would include JCB and Sleipner and Volvo and all of those in that. But I think if you are looking for something particularly, as I say, when I'm thinking about Demolition, for a start, the major manufacturers don't go as big as the specialists like Larini and Craic, but also I think it gives you an opportunity. If you're spending maybe £1 million on the base machine, a 60-15 Caterpillar excavator, and you want all of the bits and pieces, you think about the jumbo from that's operated by Despo, but it was, they said it was like a three-handed thing. It was a Despo machine that was built by, how did I describe it? It was a pizza, wasn't it? It was a Caterpillar base, a Despo recipe, and Larini sprinkled on the toppings. I think that was how I described it. That's what I'm talking about. Manufacturers will need to go into the recon market like Cat does with the bigger kit. Then we can have a spec list for the rebuild, and if owners want to up the spec, they can have it incorporated into the rebuild. Yeah, and I do think that's a very important distinction right there. That idea of upping the spec. Cat reman, when you put a machine back through the remanufacturing, if anything has changed, I can't think off the top of my head what that might be, but if there has been a change in spec from the B series version that you've got to the C series version that is now available, they will raise that to that spec. So yes, on the outside your machine might be a B series, but under the hood it could well have C series and better componentry as well. Important distinction. Marco does make some awesome equipment. The guy is an absolute genius. Yes he is. I don't know if he's actually going to Intermat. I hope he is. If so, I will be looking to meet up with him. I would imagine it's over and done with now, but Steve Williamson back at 10:15 said, long tea break for me. First regen is going on. Steve Williamson, we get our machines changed every 3 years. I was told it saves some money in the long run. And I wonder how much that's going to change. Whether it will be down to pure finance or whether there will be some sort of taxation or some sort of financial penalty to encourage you to stick with the machines that you've already got, or dissuade you from buying new unless absolutely necessary. Makes you wonder about the way that companies differentiate themselves. You think about contractors, demolition contractors included, they will openly boast about the fact that their equipment fleet is only a year or 2 years old and is therefore less likely to break down and therefore is more reliable and everything else. Is that actually a good call in the future? Or will we have demolition contractors and other contractors openly boasting about the fact that their machine fleet is now 10 years old, but it's fully remanufactured, it's to the latest specifications, but we've already done our bit for the carbon footprint even before we arrived on site? I wonder. Should we be, or maybe we should be looking rather at converting diesel equipment we've got instead of scrapping and manufacturing new electric equipment? Moog or Moog, Z-Quip, it's there. It just, I don't think I'm letting the cat out of the bag, but I'll tell you this just in case. We are meeting up with Moog over at Intermat on Friday afternoon, so Friday next week. And the original idea was we were going to do some more video type stuff with them. And at the very last minute, a day or two ago, they cried off. They didn't cry off because they didn't want to pay us, because they've already agreed to do that. But what they have said is, rather than doing something at an exhibition stand, they would rather do something where they can actually show a converted machine doing its thing. And they have intimated that they would like to do something later in the year, either here in the UK or in the Netherlands. So read between the lines, either they have sold the concept to a UK customer or they've got a proper demonstration coming to the UK or to the Netherlands in the near future. So that Moog interface, taking out the diesel and putting in those battery modules that we featured a few weeks ago, that could well be coming right here to the UK. Keep you posted. I've got the steel wrist fully reconditioned, new one every 6 years instead of a new one every 3 years. Imagine the saving. I don't know how much a rebuild or a reconditioning would cost, but a bloody sight less than a brand new one, I would imagine. Matthew Sheridan over from Leap Air. I said that somebody was going to guess the mystery machine, which, as we know, was that. It was the Halla 220, which Steve Williamson got. But no, it wasn't going to be Matthew Sheridan. Let's have a look. Jim Turner's been chatting away to Marco on Messenger. The hard thing will be changing the rigid mindset people. I don't think they are going to have a choice. I think the weight of change will they will either have to go with the flow and accept the fact that electric and hydrogen and technology and digitization is going to be the way things are, or they will just be bowled over by it. There is going to be no choice. In the future, there will be no choice. You know, as it stands at the moment, we can, electric, you can't get it charged, it's a bit problematic. Hydrogen, well, how are you going to get it to the site? And blah, 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 blah. There will come a time, possibly, probably not in my working lifetime, but it will come. And those people that are fixed mindset, oh, diesel was the best, or you could rely on your RB22. Yes, you could have done. But it doesn't matter anymore because the world's going to move on with or without those people. It really is. Loads of guesses on our machine, but there is the winning entry. The Haller 220, it most certainly was. I'm going to rattle through these because I know there's a lot to get through. Chris Ford, going back to all things breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Question of the day, breakfast, he says. You can make it so varied from toast to a full English with chips, a southern thing. Is that a southern thing? I've always thought that was a northern thing. Anybody? With a continental or American version for later. Ever had a bowl of cornflakes for supper? Perhaps only me. Chris, it is not only you. There are, I don't know if anybody else ever suffers with this. I'm not even sure it's called suffering, actually. There are times when it gets to sort of 7:30 at night and I'm sat here thinking, do you know, I really don't fancy dinner. I don't want meat and 2 veg. I don't want pizza. I don't want pasta. I'm just not feeling foodie. And on those occasions, there are 2 go-tos in this house. First go-to is toast, because, frankly, toast is the greatest food. And cornflakes. Cornflakes, cold milk. Cornflakes and cold milk of an evening, fantastic. Bizarrely, if I have cornflakes in the morning, generally in the winter, hot milk and sugar. Of an evening, cold milk, no sugar. I don't know what that says about me. There's probably something fundamentally wrong with my brain, but you've probably gathered that already. Let's have a look. Who we got here? We've done all of those, I think. Now, I tell you what, I'm going to go to the bottom of the chat. Steve Williamson says, if you don't move forward, you'll stay still. Bye-bye. That's a fact. Yeah, it is. It is. Listen, I can only speak from personal experience. Would I want to be on a magazine now, on a paper-based magazine? Not in a million years. Not for all the tea in China. No, it's a dying form, and frankly, there are some magazines and some individuals within the industry that are killing it even faster than it needs to die. I would much rather be doing this. This is the modern take on what I've been doing for 30 years. Much the same as quick couplers, tilt rotators, GPS, all of that sort of thing is the modern take on what you guys do. And yes, you can sit on the sidelines if you wish and declare yourself to be a Luddite. I do not want GPS. I do not want a quick coupler. I do not want a tilt rotator. I do not want any electronics in the cab. But you are basically assigning yourself to the hard shoulder of the industry. And those like Steve Williamson will be zooming past while you're sat there cursing your luck. Steve says, Morgan Sindel, no machines older than 5 years on site. Yeah, I can believe that. Question of the day says, I love dinner because it means my day is done and I can chill out. If I were to class anything as supper, it would be a cup of tea and biscuits. Loving chocolate malted milk biscuits at the moment. Malted milk. They do them with chocolate on? Do they? Oh, where do I find those? Mick Norton says, read Wilbur Smith's The Honey Badger, one of the best reads ever. Wilbur Smith. Was he Call of the Wild? I don't know. Hot milk on cornflakes. You, sir, are a heathen. I'll have to try it. Love warm milk on Weetabix with plenty of sugar. I think it is basically a vehicle for that. I just need to check on my Wilbur Smith knowledge. Wilbur Smith. Blimey, he's written a lot of books. Wilbur Smith. Holy balls. No, not seeing the one that I thought it was. Looks like I need to catch up on some Wilbur Smith by the looks of things. Just to show you exactly what I'm looking at. Not that you're interested, I don't suppose, but let me just share my screen. The books of Wilbur Smith. Didn't expect that to be our subject matter today. Let's go back to the beginning. And there are the works, the collected works of Wilbur Smith. Guy's been busy. I thought I was productive, but man alive, he's in a whole different class to me. Let me take that away, get rid of that from there. Let's have a look. Mick Norton says, I remember the Royal Engineers in the 1970s receiving their first batch of 120 Hall-O-Matic 615 dump trucks when they had the exhaust running through the main skip to facilitate ease of use with bitumen and heavy clay materials. What the procurement people at the MOD didn't realise was that the Hall-O-Matic skip left a wonderful heat signature for enemy aircraft. Yes, I can see the flaw in that cunning plan. You're absolutely right. The biscuits are in Aldi. There's one of those just up the road from me. Chocolate malted milk. Chris Ford says, over the years I've had many nicknames, the biscuit barrel and cakey being two. We used to go to a football with a bunch of people, and we had one guy who was, let's just say he was a big lad. And he was known among everyone. In fact, even the announcer at the ground knew who he was. He was known to one and all as Salad. He really was. What we got here? So Mick Norton says it's breakfast, dinner and tea in Yorkshire. Supper is posh and for soft southerners south of the Watford Gap. Guilty as charged, sir. Where are we? Chris Ford says, Mick, I'm a few miles south, not far, but I can manage a good breakfast, 11s, lunch, afternoon snack, dinner and supper. Sometimes supper is more than dinner, tea, a couple of nights a week. I've been on a seafood diet for years. Yes, seafood and eat it. That is quite a performance. That really is. Do you know, I've got the opposite. I've already mentioned the fact that I'm going to Italy in May for my wedding anniversary. And I've been there. I've been to exactly the same place, even the same hotel before. And I'm already planning the meals that I'm planning to miss because I love Italian food so much. I mean, it's obscene the amount that I love Italian food. But if I'm going to eat a decent pasta dish in the evening, I can't do lunch, or I need to skip breakfast. I do not have the capacity for both. So I do need to plan that accordingly. Steve says, message from Volvo just now. On the electric Volvo with tilt rotator and GPS. Thank you for your question. It varies based on the application and usage style. Generally, customer feedback indicates a runtime of 4 to 6 hours for general purpose applications. 6 hours wouldn't be bad. Steve says, supper is 9 p.m, evening tea and cake. You always have cake in your house, do you? That would never fly in this house. Partly because my wife is food Hitler and I'm a diabetic and she would punish me for that. Takashi 2057 has just joined us over on Instagram. Good morning to you, or good afternoon, depending where you are in the world. But no, cake doesn't last in this house. Same as biscuits. There is a secret stash of biscuits in this house, in this very room, but they have to be hidden. Partly to keep them away from the dogs, but mainly to keep them away from my children. What have we got here? Jim Turner says an example of how good a platform-based machine vehicle is the original Land Rovers. This list of variations virtually endless. A lot of machines could easily be made a lot more adaptable. Manufacturers of the world, are you listening? Jim Turner is advising. He's laying down the wisdom. I'd love all the mod cons, but I really don't think they'll last for 20 odd years without costing me a fortune in repairs. That's why old tech simple machines appeal to me. Hard to argue with that. Andy Darvell says, very much south of the Watford Gap. For me, it's breakfast, lunch and tea. If I have a cup of tea, it has to be Yorkshire tea. Let it mash for 4 to 5 minutes. 1 sugar and a tiny splash of milk. I've got this weird thing with hot beverages. Can't abide tea with sugar in it. Can't stand coffee without. I don't know. That probably says something about me as well, same as my fascination with cornflakes with hot milk. And just to be absolutely clear, cornflakes, big bowl full, sprinkle the sugar on, and then get the milk boiling to the point where where it goes up in the saucepan or goes up in the microwave. That's what you want on top. Bosh, lovely. But yes, can't do sugar in tea. Can't do coffee without sugar. There's probably something fundamentally wrong with my brain. That's one of the many things that's fundamentally wrong with my brain. Now, we've been going for an hour and a half, more than an hour and a half. So I think I'm going to let you go. I'll be back tomorrow for yet more of the same. If you care to join us, you're more than welcome. In fact, you're more than welcome. We'd love to have you here. The show doesn't work so well without you. So please go and have a fantastic day. Look after yourself, particularly Dan Cullen, who was on a site where apparently danger is their middle name. So look after yourself. Jim Turner just said definitely Yorkshire tea, at least 10 minutes. 10 minutes? My dad's specification for a cup of tea back in the day used to be to brew it for long enough that you could walk an elephant across it. That was his take on it. Andy Darvell says, have a great day, guys. Stay safe and have fun. And Chris Ford apparently has come over all Spanish because he's just said adios amigos. Adios amigos is a fair old way to end. So go do your thing. I'll be back here again 10 a.m. sharp, and I realise Andy Darvell and Dan Cullen will be here at least 2 hours before that. I may or may not say hello to them at that point, but everybody else, 10 o'clock tomorrow, more of the same. See you then. All the best.